Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for today's random horror review. Today's movie is one that I am excited to talk about. This is one that, honestly, I feel like I'll get into it a little bit more later, but I feel like it could be horror's biggest hidden gem. And what I mean by that is, I feel like if you're a horror fan, you know this movie and you know how respected and loved this movie is. But if you are more of a casual fan or someone who's new to horror or likes the more mainstream stuff, not in a bad way, everyone's at that at a certain point, in their movie watching experience. I feel like this is a movie that will be pretty foreign to you and you haven't really heard too much about. If I feel like I brought this up in just a casual movie conversation with casual moviegoers, they would probably be like, huh, what is that? But like I said, if you're a horror fan, how loved this movie is, and I'll get into my thoughts on it. But today's movie is from 1981, starring Sam Neill and Isabella, I always butcher her last name, but Adjani, and the movie is called Possession. I don't love the cover that I have in this Umbrella Entertainment edition. It's an old Umbrella, you can tell that, but yeah, the movie Possession from 1981, like I was saying. So, as usual, let's quickly get into the plot for this movie. So, husband and wife, Mark and Anna, played respectively by Sam Neill and Isabel Adjani. Again, I'm not even sure if I'm saying her last name right, but they are a married couple, and we're introduced to them in this movie. They're still married, but their marriage is failing. They're just not on the same page. Mark decides to leave his job to be closer with his family and rekindle this relationship. But right away, Anna is caught, and she pretty much openly confesses that she's been seeing someone else. So that opens like a whole other can of issues. They fight. Mark wants out, like he doesn't even want anything to do with their son because they have a young son. Then he decides no, he wants in and to try and make it work. But Anna is pretty much obsessed with this other thing that's going on. She's just constantly obsessed with getting her fix with this mystery person, which is pretty much the whole plot of this movie. Like, who is she going off to see and why is she so obsessed with this other person? So yeah, the rest of the film is pretty much that mystery and what's going on there. So it is a bit more of like, I don't know, a thriller in a way. I'd almost describe it as like an erotic thriller meets a horror, because there definitely are horror elements, but they come in a little bit later in the film. But it's an interesting one to talk about, and like I said, if you are a horror fan, you would definitely know this movie and like in terms of where it goes, and that sort of explains like where the horror elements come in. So like I said, you could consider this one to be like one of the all-time horror hidden gems, like I was discussing before, because it's so widely loved and respected in the horror genre. But again, if you're just talking casually to a mainstream moviegoer, they probably haven't heard of this one. Sorry, something keeps dropping underneath the camera. I'm trying to get it away because it keeps distracting me. It's a classic for those who know this movie, and it's had like a long enough lifespan. As I said, it's from 1981, so it's been around for this long and still widely unknown and unseen by a lot of people. So it's got to be considered a horror hidden gem, from however you kind of look at it in a way. This was actually only my second time watching this movie, and the first time that I'd seen it wasn't even that long ago. I'd say maybe 4 or 5 months ago. It was one that's been on my radar for the longest time. I just never got around to it. I never had a copy of it, but nothing was stopping me from watching it online or something like that. I just, for the longest time, didn't get around to this movie. Not because I didn't have an interest. I really wanted to see this movie. I just kept putting it on the back burner, which I guess kind of happens sometimes. My thoughts after the first time watch, it's a movie that I think just went over my head a lot the first time around, and I think I just sort of struggled to lock in. I will say with watching it this time, I did enjoy it more, and we'll get into that a little bit more. I respect this movie. There's things I like about it. Not a bad movie at all. I think it's just one of those things where it's just not fully for me and I don't fully connect with it. It is very artsy as well for someone going in blind. They hear possession and they think, crazy shit's going to be going on constantly. No, it's a slow burn. There's a lot of like character building and drama and everything. And like I said, the scares come in at about the halfway mark, and they're not conventional scares either. And that's something, as I said, we'll get into in this review. But yeah, like I said, it's a movie that I respect, and it's not a bad film at all. I just don't think it's really my thing. The first time around, like I said, a lot of it definitely went over my head. This time I understood it a lot better. But it was more so in terms of in depth and the metaphors that still went over my head this time around. But I'm excited to get into this one in today's review. Yeah, so that was a little bit of a long-winded intro, but getting into it, and I guess I'll start with where the horror kicks in and where the horror and tension comes from in this movie. So like I said, it's not packed with horror. You're waiting around a little bit for something genuinely kind of scary or creepy to happen. Honestly, it feels like more so a drama in the first half, or like I said in the intro, almost like an erotic thriller in a way, with a very artsy twist. But you know, this erotic thriller of like, where is this wife going, and why is she so obsessed with like needing to be there and everything? It really is pretty intriguing. The horror comes, you know, around sort of when you see how obsessed this wife is with like needing to be with this other person, and he's like, where are you going, and like, why are you gone for so long? And there's moments where she's left the kid at the house by himself, and the husband's just confused, like, where are you going? And it gets to points where he's hiring private investigators to follow her around and everything, and the mystery is really cool and it's quite creepy. But I'd say it really isn't quite horror yet. I'd probably call it like more uncomfortable. Like, it's just like, it does make it like very tense and eerie, and maybe creepy, but like it's just got this mystery that is really intriguing. But I'd say where the horror really does kick in is probably a little over the halfway mark, which I know will turn off a lot of people, just me saying that there. But the reveal of who Anna is sleeping with, that is where the horror really comes in. And it sounds like that would be the reveal right at the end of the movie, but you get it about, as I said, a little bit over the halfway mark. And that part really is horror, and it's just like, whoa. I remember the first time I was watching this movie, like I said, I connected with it a lot more this time around compared to the first time. But the first time I was watching this movie, I was like, I don't really get it. And then the reveal happened, and I just like sat up. I'm like, what the fuck? And if you've seen this movie, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. There's no confusion on what scene I'm talking about. You're going to 100% know. But after that, the horror is definitely more prominent. Like I said, the reveal itself is pretty horrific, and you know, we'll get into that a little bit as well, I guess. Definitely a part that I'd probably say is the scariest is the part in the subway or the train tunnel or whatever you want to call it. Like, that scene is genuinely terrifying. Like, when not a spoiler, not really. When she's like flailing around and like crawling on the floor, like screaming, and like, it's like fucking terrifying. Like, that shit is scary. I enjoy the reveal, and as I said, I enjoy that it's not this grand climax right at the end of this movie, because, as I said, it happens a little bit over the halfway mark, but then you return to the reveal a couple of times, as in new characters coming into the situation, seeing who she's sleeping with, and each time they actually step it up. So you think the first reveal would just be like, whoa, and then after that, you know, your mind's already blown and you're getting accustomed to it. No, it just gets worse and worse. Each time you revisit the person who she's sleeping with, it just gets like more and more fucking crazy, and like probably like impactful is the right word. For each time you revisit, it becomes grosser, nastier. They show deeper detail of what's going on. That's easily my favorite part of the movie, the reveal, and all the scenes that have to do with what's actually going on. Everything to do on a technical standpoint with this movie is also pretty solid. Our two leads, and they're pretty much the characters that we follow for 90% of the movie, honestly. They both do an incredible job. The lead performances are fantastic in this film. Everything technical standpoint, like, you know, lighting, camera angles, the way the movie's shot and the way that it looks, everything there is spectacular. Like I said, the movie maybe isn't crazy into like the horror side of things, but it is very uncomfortable. But all the uncomfortable stuff is really effective, and it's pretty consistent the whole way through, as in just the whole mystery of where the wife is going and why she's so obsessed to be over there is like pretty uncomfortable. And then, as I said, you got the reveal, and there's all these little quirks as well that do stick with me. Like, when I think back on the movie, like, there's a part where Sam Neill is in this rocking chair, and he is rocking the fuck out of this chair. Like 100%, it's a style choice. Like the director's like, no, you need rock more, rock more. Like the wife is talking to him, and he's almost like on a decline. Like every time he goes back, he's like looking up at the roof to like speak to her. I'm like, he's rocking the fuck out of this chair. Since the first time I seen this movie, like I just remember that scene. I don't know if I'm overthinking it. There's also just this weird part where the kids teacher, I forget the kid's name, but the kids teacher comes over to the apartment. I can't remember why, just off the top of my head. But he goes, yeah, he's in there. He's just having a bath at the moment. Do you mind watching him? And as I said, I don't know if I'm overthinking it. The kid's like 5 or 6, and he just says to the teacher, do you mind just watching him in the bath, like giving him a hand and whatever? It's like, isn't that like weird, just getting the teacher to go in there? I don't know. I just thought it was fucking sus. But anyway, like I said, I'm probably overthinking it. But even with the reveal, which as I said is my favorite part of the movie, and continuously returning to it, the mystery aspect, the unsettling nature of this movie, the quick little quirks that pop up every now and then, even with all of them, I feel like this movie still doesn't drive itself home, for myself at least. There are some really slow scenes where you're literally listening to one side of a phone call, and like it's hard to stay locked in for those scenes for myself. There are still scenes that I admittedly do not understand. Even the ending, if I'm being completely transparent, I still don't 100% know what's going on there. And even after the first time I watched this movie, I watched a video of an explanation for it because I didn't get it then. And even after that explanation video, I'm still not sure if I fucking get it. But I don't know. I do feel like this is a movie where the more you see it, the more it will help. Like I said, it's grown on me since the first time I seen it. So I'm just sort of hoping, the more times I go around checking it out again, it grows on me even more. But the ending, those long and weird scenes, I'm just not understanding. Like I said, I can make it say it's like hard to be drawn in and enjoy it, but like the central mystery and twist, everything about that I like, the clues, the reveals, but the things going over my head are some of the weird like nothing things that are kind of like the parts that lost me. I didn't really explain myself then. Like I said, I'm sort of hoping one day this film will click with me and I completely understand like the metaphors and the deep meanings, like and I don't want you to get what I mean confused, because I really did just spit a lot out then, and I kind of confused myself. I understand the story from A to B, as in the reveals and big moments between characters. I understand that. It's more so the metaphors and things having double meanings and stuff. They're the parts that are going over my head and I'm a little bit confused with. But otherwise, there is a lot to enjoy from this movie, and like I said, I do think it's one where, if you're trying to get into horror, this is one where a true horror fan is going to be like, oh, check out Possession. And I'm happy I did. Like I said, it's still not quite for me. I'm happy that it's grown on me from the first time round, but if I have to get into a rating for this one, a lot of people who are horror fans and love this movie are probably going to come for my throat here, but at the moment I'm probably going to give it like a 6.5, which a lot of people are like, what, that's like a terrible score. In the way I do scores, that's not too bad at all. Like I said, this movie on a technical standpoint, well done, well acted, looks good, everything like that. The story is there, the tension and the unsettling nature is there, the reveal is fucking awesome, but there is just things that aren't connecting for myself to take it anything higher for now. Like the first time I seen it was probably like a 5, so moving up a 0.5 is pretty good. So Possession from 1981, I'm going to leave it there because, like I said, that last little ramble I just did, I even fucking confused myself a little bit on what I was saying. But thank you for joining me for this review, guys. I appreciate it as always, and I'll see you for another video soon. Peace.